let me start the meet by welcoming Dr. Chandrashekar in person. To start with, I would like to introduce everybody. Who are we and what are we? We are Education Mentoring India, a team of people who are educationalists, and we plan to bring in the change in the education system in India. We strongly believe that school ecosystems grow lifetime worth of skills, and we believe in nurturing the ecosystem of schools. India and what we've seen in the pandemic is across the world, people are believing into bringing the change within the system rather than outside the system. And as of that, we have got a team of 100 educationalists who believe in changing the system in India, especially in the cities which are small town cities who want to change and they do not know how to bring in the change in their schools. So, on behalf of the team EMI, we would like to welcome our esteemed guest, Dr. Chandrashekar. Welcome, sir. He is the youngest CEO in the education industry. He is a TEDx speaker, and he's an alumni of IIM Lucknow. He has done a lot in this field, and he wants to change the school system for 100 million children. And this is a spirit which we want in everybody to bring in the change. And over to you, sir. And today we'll be discussing about pedagogical leadership and future ready schools. So the platform is for you, sir.
Thank you very much, Tripta. And first of all, let me take this opportunity to greet everyone at the Education Mentoring India. I want to start off by thanking a good friend who connected both of us, Mr. Sheshadri. And also, I want to congratulate you in advance for all the excellent work you people have sought off to achieve. Because I believe we as educators, we often work as islands of excellence. There are enough and more examples from the past that teachers have been islands of excellence, and even to this day, we can see far and wide across the globe, there are those committed, diligent teachers who kind of sacrifice their entire lifetime for the sake of education. But thanks to forums like you and many others who are out there, they are now no more islands of excellence. They are bringing them together. Collaboration is happening, and we can see that growing, and the whole ecosystem is now becoming more vibrant and more robust. And I think that is where I want to congratulate Education Mentoring India, that you are, I think, on the right path, according to me. And this is the need of the hour, because more and more people should take examples and inspiration from the work what you are doing. And in my personal opinion, no work is silly or small. Everything matters, and every minute we spend on improving education and working towards this really matters. So I want to congratulate you once again there.
Thank you.
Well, now let's come to today's conversation. And I personally believe in making interesting classrooms. So when I mean interesting classrooms, interaction becomes an integral part of this interesting classrooms. And for me, everything is a classroom, whether you are on a Google room or a Zoom room or anything, because as teachers, that's the forum we focus on, and that's the place we love to interact with. So the way I would like to structure today's interaction is maybe 15 or 20 minutes I will speak about my experiences in education. And I know that I must say this very humbly, that I've still not scratched the surface. So it's a long way to go. So I will share about whatever I have learned and what worked for me. And maybe after that, we can open it up for more and more questions and interactions, because as much as I want to share, I also want to learn and go back enriched. And that can only happen when we have a dialogue.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So, I mean, let me give you a brief about the scale and the background with which I am operating in India. So, we are a Bangalore-based educational institution. We believe in cradle to career, which means we have kindergarten schools to 3 universities. So that's the span at which we operate. So we have children as young as 6 month old entering our ecosystem, and children or people, I can say, who are as young as 60, 65 years, who are still in the ecosystem doing their postdoctoral and other programs. So when we do this, what we learned or what we have understood is education is a never ending process. It's an ongoing thing. And I think that's a fundamental belief number one. Belief number one, we as an organization believe. Number two, if you look at our organization, the promoter, the founder chairman, he is a 8th standard dropout Dr. Roychan Chandra. Now, that brings us another belief that you don't have to think education is equivalent to qualification or certification. Education does not mean in any way that it is qualification or it is certification. Education is knowledge, assimilation, and application of available knowledge. I think that's the best way to define education, in my personal opinion. That is the belief number two. Belief number three, innovation and adoption or adaptation, as we call, is the necessity, and I think it's a two-sided coin, with one side printed as innovation and the other side printed as adaptation. And that is more relevant to the current reality which we are going through. I mean, look at what has happened to schools. The famous line, which is very popularly used across all forums by educators, is our schools or colleges may be shut, but learning has never stopped. Right? So that means we have adapted to the fast changing environment which COVID has brought in. I mean, we are talking of VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, and all that. I think there cannot be better definition of the world called for VUCA than COVID or pandemic, because that's how it is. But today, if you look at it, I mean, I'll tell you my own example. In 2017, I spent 1.5 hours in convincing my Hindi teacher about having an email ID. Today, that very Hindi teacher has a Google Classroom. That's the transformation. And thanks to pandemic, none of us had to do anything. People understood that it is the only way to perform, or else we will perish. Right? And I really want to stop here and thank and salute all the teachers and the people from the education fraternity across the globe. And in my own way, I believe they are COVID warriors. Why? They rose up to the occasion. They, folded their sleeves and then they went to work online. And the kind of changes, the kind of unlearning and relearning they have done in the last 15 months, no training program in any organization has achieved that kind of objective. So this is the background with which I want to get into pedagogical leadership, and also how can we create winning schools for the 21st century, because that's the topic which we are going to talk about today.
Yes.
Now let's understand what is pedagogical leadership. According to me, pedagogical leadership, yes, the CBSE and the ICSE and the Government of India, Ministry of HRD, and various other boards and forums have spoken about principal being the pedagogical leader in the classroom or in the school premises, which is absolutely fine. According to me, more than fixing the responsibility of pedagogical leadership on one individual, I think all of us have to open up our eyes to understand 4 simple words. And that, for me, defines pedagogical leadership, which is what I'm going to talk about today. Firstly, the climate. And when I talk of climate, we did start off this conversation by looking at what is the weather in Hyderabad, or what's the weather in Australia, or any other place. Yes, climate plays an important role. And when we are talking of climate, I'm referring particularly to school climate. What is the climate for understanding learning? Okay, that's the first thing. Now, let me give you an example. Online came in, COVID came in, and then people started thinking of, let us connect with Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Classrooms or any other forum, including WhatsApp video calls, and let's reach out to students. After a couple of months, the next question which was coming down the educators' road was, how do we do assessments? Okay. And that's where the transformation came in, where till COVID came in, assessment meant assessment of learning. Please listen to this carefully. Till COVID came in, majority of the meaning of assessment or the understanding of assessment came in as assessment of learning. But the minute COVID came in, we started to know a new word, which is assessment for learning. They are two poles apart, assessment of learning and assessment for learning. But today, thanks to Zoom quizzes or Mentimeters and all the other tools which are available, now more and more assessment for learning is happening, where it's a scaffolding method, where I learn something, then I understand and reflect, and then again I relearn or upgrade my skill and go to the next level, which is we can call as differentiation, or you can call as the ladder, learning ladders, whatever terminologies we use, but the concept is here. So coming back, when I say the school climate is important, I'm particularly referring to the climate of understanding learning. Please understand, we have to not teach, we have to understand learning, because today children learn in different ways and across different timelines and in different styles. So we have to understand that multiple intelligences or kinesthetic or wax model, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, sensory, all of that are all jargons and diagrams and frameworks if we don't understand basic climate of the school. That's the first thing. Second is the culture. Now, climate is one thing. Now, let's go to the next part, which is culture. Now, what is culture? Culture is a great combination of values, leadership, principles, and performance. It's a great combination. And that, I don't think English dictionary has any other better word than culture, in my opinion, because in one word, you can actually bring in stories from these different perspectives and principles. And if you look at culture, the single most required culture in the school environment is collaboration. Because even my security guard can be a teacher at one point in time to my student, and he does not have to have a timetable. And that comes in only by collaboration. I mean, I've been hearing examples and stories of how bus drivers, escorts, how cafeteria waiters have been giving value lessons, which is worth its weight in gold for students. And as we all know, values are caught and not taught. So culture plays an important role, and collaboration is the key. And as a principal or as an academic head or even as an admin head or as the management, if we are able to create a collaborative culture, and we have to also instill another thing along with collaborative culture, a collaborative culture which fosters inquiry mindset, which means encouraging questions, not giving the right question, but allowing them to ask the wrong question. That again is another pole apart combination. We want them to ask the right question. No. Right questions are all printed at the back of the textbook. But wrong questions are only printed in the heart of the children. So we need to create that culture which will encourage them to collaborate and to ask those questions. That is the inquiry mindset. That is the second part. The third part is the word called focus. And when I talk of focus, I want to particularly focus on, now NEP has come and art integration is the buzzword everywhere. Competency-based learning is another thing. I think let's go to first principles. And first principles is focus on science, art, craft, and math learning. This is the fundamental thing which every school should focus on. And if you, I mean, that we know, right? The 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Right? And along with that, I think now science, art, and craft or performing art, whatever it is, all of these things are fundamental requirements for students, because remember, we're preparing them for the future. And when we're preparing them for the future, we've already understood or entered the gig economy. Today, no longer a degree is required for people to make their living. There are many people who are maybe earning twice or thrice some of us only by doing freelance work, right? And there, they are not bothered about their qualification or their experience. They are as good as their previous assignment. Okay? So gig economy is already there. So I think we need to bring in art integrated education, and the focus should be on integration of themes in the classroom. No longer the staff room can be divided into a math staff room or a lady staff room versus a gentleman staff room. The classroom and the staff room will now come together and the walls will be broken down. And that, I think, is another secret of making a winning school. Right? Then the fourth one and the last one is again the word focus, but then now the focus on making the changes which are necessary to improve the level of learning. One is understanding learning, but the other one is improving the level of learning. And here I am not referring only to the students. I am referring to the teachers, I am referring to the leaders, and I am also referring to the parents along with the students. Because I believe learning happens. School, as they say, right, it takes a village to raise a child.
Exactly.
It takes the society to make the school successful. Society is nothing but a cross section of the ecosystem of the, school is nothing but a cross section of the ecosystem of the society. Right? You get people from all walks of life. Thanks to RTE, you get people from all standards of life. But if we are not able to understand that and also put the learning levels into practice, then we will get good marks or get good results out of the year. But at the end of the day, if you measure the level of learning, it will be a sad story. So I think the focus should be on the changes which we need to make for improving the learning levels. I think the pedagogical leadership manual talks about learning to learn, learning to live, learning to love, and all those things. I think, in other words, they're talking about the levels of learning, right? So these are the four basic things I want to speak about when I talk about pedagogical leadership. Then the last part, which is the second part for today's topic, is how to create a winning school. I already shared one part, which is we can bring in integration, collaboration, and that is one of the fundamental necessities for a winning school. Three more things, which in my opinion will create a winning school, is one, involvement of parents. You cannot say, we know it all and we will do it the way we want. Whatever else you want to do, you do it with your child when the child is at your house. That attitude is, in my opinion, an attitude or a recipe for failure. Look at COVID. Today, teachers are just facilitators in the real sense of the word, because children are actually taking classes along with their mother or their father next to them. You may not see them on the screen, but they're there. So parental involvement is a critical element of partnership and success for the school in the future or going forward. Then the third element, first being collaboration and culture, second being involvement of parents. Third element, which is important for making successful schools in the 21st century, is give the mantle of control in the hands of the students. In the hands of you must have studied or read that book of Stephen Covey, which is talking about leadership in schools, right? And there he tells, why don't you allow students to handle the reception area, the front office? Yes, you can take turns and let them do. We all do it in our schools. The prefectorial committee, the apex body, or the investiture ceremony, what you do at the beginning of the academic year, where you appoint a school pupil leader or a school captain or whatever you call it. Involving parent is important, but giving the control to the students is more important. Let me give you a simple case study in my own life. There was this boy, I don't want to name him for privacy reasons, but the boy, he belonged to grade 9 or grade 8. This guy was absenting himself for 4 days consecutively. And we have a policy in our group where any child who does not turn up after second day, the call goes to the parent from the reception saying what happened, why is he not coming? So the third day we called, and the father and the mother said, oh, we did not know that this boy is not coming. This is the reality. So they said, okay, we will get back to you. Then the fourth day, the parents called saying, yes, he always used to get ready and go out, but he used to spend time in the friend's house, and he used to work on something. Now that we have realized and we have caught him, we're going to bring him back to school this weekend. The boy came. Father, mother, principal, everybody got on the trip of blaming the boy. Boy was silent. After a few minutes, maybe more than 20, 30 minutes, the boy said, whatever you said, wait till Monday. Monday morning, I'll come back to you. That's it. Just a one-liner. So we could not say anything. We just left because he's a grade 8 boy. We need to start treating him as an adult. He came back on Monday morning and he told the principal, can I have your phone? He said, why do you need my phone? He said, no, you give me the phone in front of his parents, and even I was there. And he said, okay. He went to the app store. He downloaded an app and then he created something and then he logged in and he gave it to her and he said, ma'am, once you enter all the students list here, you will get an automatic notification as to who did not come to your school, and your receptionist need not call the parent. A message will go to the parent automatically that your boy or your girl has not turned up to the school. May I know the reason? The boy, for 4 days, was sitting at his friend's place and developing the app. Now, look at this. What does this say? We come with assumptions and presumptions. If a boy or a girl is not attending the school, we think he or she is loitering. We think they are just, bunking the school and they're busy with their own other mischievous things. No, not necessarily. So if you look at it, we need to bring them back for that collaboration. We need to bring them back for that idea where they understand what we are doing, we understand what they are doing, and we go together. And that, I think, is the secret of the 21st century school. Today, children are no longer looking at projects which are written on the back of the textbook or suggested by the teacher. Today, they are doing real-time projects and giving you solutions to real-time problems and expecting you to grade them. Now, if I am not ready to do that, it's not their mistake. It is actually my inability. Right? So I think there are a lot of things which I can go on and on. But to cut the long story short, I think the secret for the 21st century school is number one, collaboration. Number two, involvement of parents. Number three, giving the control to the students to take charge and take it forward. So this is what I would like to tell you at this point in time. Maybe I can stop here now and we can listen to more inputs and insights from others. Thank you very much, and back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Chandrashekar. It was very insightful, and especially to know about that boy. It was extremely interesting because we, as a parent, also at times get into the dilemma of not trusting our children despite knowing so much that so much more is there. But as an educationalist, over a period of time, when you're talking about scaffolding, my mind was thinking about Vygotsky. Ages back, he spoke about scaffolding and bringing the change in the schools, in the learning systems. When you spoke about parent as partners, my mind went back to Loris Malaguzzi thinking about Reggio approach when he spoke about, this is something which has happened 150 years back, wherein they had spoken about these things, but still the dilemma lies that where to start. What I feel is today when I talk to the principals, they say that, ma'am, I am working morning to evening and I do not know what I'm doing. I'm so stuck in my administrative and operational work that, pedagogical leadership is somewhere lying there somewhere. It goes only for 12, 13% of my life because we are working on the same structure again and again and again and year after year. So this dilemma has to come out. The principals have to be ready that they have to be the pedagogical leaders. They have to take control of the children and the education and not the operations of the schools. That is
Absolutely.
my question, and those things which we expected, those learners and learned people told us to do 150 years back, we are still struggling to bring that in the school system. It is like a sorry state. So how you suggest to bring in this change, and how the principal can take the charge?
See, I think you're right when you say that. In fact, one of the common questions which principals ask me when I sit with them for reviews is, if you reflect back, we do more than, 50% of work. What we do is more of administration and policing or follow-ups, that kind of work, than the real hardcore pedagogy or teaching and focusing on research and innovation inside the classroom. I think the answer is in the question itself, according to me. If you take up the burden of running the school, if you take up the burden of showing the way for everyone, I don't think it is possible, because the sheer size of the school, you may have in India, the average school size is 400 students, which means you're talking of 1,000 people at any given point of time interacting with you, right? Now, 1,000 people, what is the 1 is to 10 ratio or 1 is to 100 ratio doesn't work there, because as a principal, you're just one person. You may be a lady or a gentleman. Now you have 1,000 people or 999 people on the other side seeking and fighting for your attention. I think the simple answer is decentralization. Create every teacher, or encourage every teacher to become a pedagogical lead, right? And focus on these things, whether it is climate, whether it is culture, whether it is the focus, should be there. And only when we do that, then your level of burden, of administrative burden or managerial burden, will come down, and you can also focus. In fact, in Jain Group, we have this fundamental rule: even a principal will have to handle at least 2 classes. Okay, and we will divide her work or reduce her work or his work accordingly, but they have to go to the class. And one class is like the senior most class, and one class is given to them. They can go to any class. Why? Because they are in touch with the ground reality. As simple as one of the principal, again, and let me give you an example. My principal said, "Sir, teachers are sitting and teaching. I want to remove the chairs from all the classrooms." Because when we were growing up as teachers, we never were allowed to sit, and I could handle 1 hour lectures without sitting. Why should the teacher sit down today? I said, fine, fair enough. But then she has a timetable and she has to go to the class, and she sat on the table, on the desk. That's when she realized that this is something which I don't need to do, because the weather was different, or maybe the energy levels are different in the class. So then she said, no, sir, I think we can put back the chairs. It's just that we need that to relax and get back. So only when you are hands-on, you will know what rule is favorable, what rule is not favorable. Sitting in your office and taking a rule or making a statement is very easy for everyone.
Exactly. This is what the ADP also says, that the head has to take over the responsibility of pedagogical leadership rather than planning. The planning has to start from within the school, then coming outside, understand your school and your systems. I can read the chat, and there are people who are willing to ask questions. I would like to take a question from the audience. Any questions, please?
Hi, this is Shanti Satish here.
Good afternoon, madam.
Very good afternoon, Mr. Chandrashekar. I am a social entrepreneur working for children with specific learning difficulties. And you also know that the NEP focuses on inclusion education, right?
Yes.
So considering this, like especially children with specific learning difficulties are like cat on the wall. They need more of emotional support. And I was too impressed to talk to you when you spoke about this example about a child being so creative, where many of these creative things are never been appreciated. For a very fact, even I had a student like who was dyslexic and was very creative, and he wanted to do something else in terms of robotics, but he never had a chance because academically he's not great. So the teachers, they had a fixed thing in their mind that okay, this child cannot be doing anything else including robotics, sports, nothing. And so they kept him off even from sports, and he was actually even to do drill. I'm sorry, I'm taking another 2 more minutes.
No, please, ma'am, go ahead.
He was asked to stand in the drilling at the last when they do the home drills, right? So they have some coordination issue. So imagine the kind of morale that the child was going through was so bad. He was never interested to go to school. And he always felt his parent or his mother was the best teacher, and she could actually understand and teach him at home and, understand the pet. But he was never a failure. He passed through everything. And today the child is doing law.
Wow.
And he is actually pursuing bodybuilding as well as weightlifting in sports. A child was never allowed to play sport. So I think the way how teachers have to think is like accept the child, and more than anything, do you feel that a learner's profile should be created so the teacher also understands the learner before they even get into the space, into the class, so that they don't make assumptions. And this is nobody else, but it's my own son.
Wow.
No, I mean, I completely agree with you. First of all, let me congratulate you as a parent. You have done a great job. And in fact, your son is an example or a case study for a lot of other people. In fact, one of my friend has a similar situation. She lives in North Carolina, and it is not easy. I mean, I keep getting almost daily updates from her about the tantrums and the situations and the challenges they go through on a daily basis. And it is not easy, and my heart really goes out for people who are handling this, because for them, when you have a special child, everything else around remains constant, plus this is an added one, right? So it is that much more time taking and effort taking, but the way you have managed is amazing and fantastic. But let me answer the question.
Yeah.
Let me come to the question. And you said profiling is it a must? Is it required? Well, I think, yeah, it's a no brainer to say yes, profiling is important. And there are many methods today to profile the children: multiple intelligences, personality tests, and a lot of things. In fact, we did a whole brain school. We in fact came up with India's first whole brain school in 2015, where we want to talk about right brain or left brain, and then all the 8 dimensions of the brain, all that. Okay. And we had none other than Kubus Neethling, the father of creativity from South Africa, Johannesburg, mentoring the school. So we had all of that. I will go one level deeper. I'll say profiling is important, but more important is the connection. The connection, which is the emotional connect between the teacher and the taught. And I think for that, you don't need a B.Ed, you don't need an international school tagline, you don't need a city to even connect. I mean, go back to the life of Baba Sahib Ambedkar. The boy connected with his teacher, and today whatever Ambedkar is thanks to his teacher, and he has written it in his own biography. Same with Dr. Kalam. I mean, Kalam did not even know that there is a field called a missile scientist. It is thanks to the teacher who took him to the sea banks or seashores of Rameshwaram and showed him a bird and humbly told, I don't know how planes fly, because Kalam asked the question, okay, birds fly because they push the wind down and then they go up, but the plane will not move its wings. How does it go? And the teacher was humble enough to say, I don't know, you may have to learn. And he went to Chennai and he opened the book in the library, and the rest, as we know, is history. So I think the connection between the teacher and the child is more important. And in my opinion, online is giving that connection, because today teacher can go on and connect with the child. And I'm sure when the transition happens to offline world post COVID or pandemic, the child and the teacher are that much more closer. This is my personal opinion, ma'am.
Great. Mr. Gunashankar, I want to add on a point to this question. I would request him to add on what he wants to say.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you very much, sir, for the wonderful ideas that you shared. I would like to share one thing with reference to the teacher and the doctor. The doctor, we can say the doctor is the best doctor whenever he can diagnose the disease correctly. And some of the doctors just simply they will write some tablets, and if it is not cured, again they will change the tablet, again they will change the tablet, and at last automatically it will be cured. Okay, this doctor cannot be considered as a doctor at all. Okay, anyone who can diagnose the disease correctly will be considered as a best doctor. Similarly, in the education field, especially the teachers play a very important role in identifying the strengths of the students. And the teachers only can identify, not the admin. Admin can identify only a part. The teachers can identify very easily which student is having what kind of strengths. Okay, this is the teacher's duty to find out and support the student. If each and every teacher is dedicatedly identifying these things, all the students in the class will be in top, because each and everyone is having his or her own special characteristic. Okay, this is my opinion to share. Thank you.
Very true, sir. Thank you.
So I would like to add on to this point that teachers do have parameters to judge, and they do write the profiling of the child. But end of the day, the profile is matching to the profile given to her rather than profile given as per the child. So there is a set pattern of profile. She has to put that child in that pattern. In case he fits in, it's fine. In case the child is not able to fit in, they say he's not not capable enough to be what he's supposed to be. So we have to change the parameters as per the child rather than the parameters given by the administration. That is the word I would like to add on. So anybody having any other question, or we'd like to take another question from my side?
Uh, okay, I'll ask one question. So wonderful session, Chandrashekar. So we are working. So let me give you my background. I'm founder and CEO of Vector Education. We are working on intelligence assessment. And you said right, assessment for learning, and I think that is what philosophy we are following. Now my question is, you said so the system is very rigid. Okay, there is a huge rigidness in the system, and so bringing that change, we needed one pandemic, right? Do we need such kind of pandemic to change our teacher or education system, right? Like as a whole education system, that is one thing. Second, you talked about like the Hindi teacher was not using any email ID from decades, but now they suddenly started using it. So again, it goes back to so do we need such pandemic? And if there is a rigidness, why such rigidness is coming, right? Is it because of there is a difference in the generation, or even there are new teachers coming? They are not very active or very open to new technologies and innovations.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Mr. Krishnakant, and I want to answer this with an example. I mean, all of us know that human beings are creatures of habits, right? So we take pride in our habits, whether it is good or bad. It doesn't really matter because it is my habit, right? So now we are talking about changing habits, and if you look at psychology, habits are changed only in two occasions. One, either you should have a traumatic experience or you should have a dramatic experience. Okay? So now if you qualify pandemic to be a traumatic experience, yeah, so it is a traumatic experience and that's why the habit is changing. So this is the answer to your first part of the question, that habits take time to change. Now the second part of the question is, it's not about one person's habit we are talking about. We are talking about a fraternity. When we are talking about a fraternity, you need an impact of that scale for things to change. You need an impact of that scale to change. And that's why somebody rightly pointed out at the chat window at the right time, training, developing the capacities of the people. These are important requirements and these are important actions we need to take if you want to see mass scale habit change or behavior change models. So I think pandemic is a great opportunity for all of us, and I personally feel sooner or later all of us were moving into this space. Pandemic has only accelerated it. It has put the whole world on a crash course.
Yes, exactly. Catherine, Dr. Catherine, you have any question to ask? Because
thank you, and I've found the discussion really interesting. I just had some thoughts as everyone was talking about honouring the child and honouring what they already know and what they already can do. And I read some research once that if teachers just spend a minute with a child whenever they can during the day or across the week and ask them about something that they do outside of school. So ask them about, the new baby or the new shoes that they've got or something like that that's not to do with schoolwork at all. It helps build those relationships with children, and that builds a better bond between the child and the teacher. Now, in doing that, the teacher learns a little bit about the child's home life and their actual interests, the things that they like to do. Once they know that, then they can start structuring the lessons around things that are interesting to the child. Now, one of the things that I advocate for is I guess it's project-based learning, I guess, in a way, but it's more about understanding the child's interests and knowing what's in the curriculum. So in Australia, around the grade 5 level, so that's about 10-year-olds, the children are taught about systems. Now, the example in the curriculum is the solar system. That's what you're supposed to teach the children. But why do we all have to talk about the solar system? Why can't we talk about one of the interests? So Tripta might be interested in horses. So why couldn't she do a digestive system? I might be interested in cars, so I could do an engine system. Chandra might be interested in some other. He might be interested in the solar system, so he does a project on the solar system. So in a class of 25 children, there's 25 different projects that we all do, but the understanding is systems. So the skills that we're wanting to build is all about how things work together and how the cause and effect and all of that sort of stuff. So that's what we're teaching the children. So why not link it to their interests so that they can work on something that they're actually interested in, and then at the end everyone gets to showcase their learning. So in a class of 25, we learn about 25 different systems, or we can compare Chandra's system to Tripta's system. And we can make a comparison and do some, maths around that and some literacy around that, so we can integrate all of the different subject areas based on individual children's interests. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And I thought of that when you were talking about the assessment of the learning, which I see as being summative learning, but there's also assessment in learning, which I think is formative. So you're sort of, assessing on your feet, you're questioning and that sort of thing. And then there's that assessment for learning, which is that ongoing planning and working with what you've got. So I think when we're looking at that project-based or that interest-based learning, we can fit in that assessment really easily because it's an ongoing, accessible thing that's happening, and it's related to the children's interests. So we're personalising the learning. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there and just see what you think.
Thank you
No, I think
so
it's
much.
interesting. Thank you.
Mr. Anybody else having any other question? And I would like to sum up after that, Dr. Catherine's question. Anybody else?
Can I?
Yes, please. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. All right. I just want to talk about when we were discussing about assessment. Though we have said a lot about assessment for learning or assessment of learning, but considering especially the scenario in our country, I would also like to talk about authentic assessments. These days, when we tend to assess, the kids are able to experience what we are assessing and how we are assessing, and then they form their opinion based on that, the younger kids. So I'll give you a simple example of today now when recently Haryana board has announced its class 10th results, which obviously during the pandemic time nobody went through typically a pen and paper test, which was at least authentic. Here we have 19 to 20% of the students scoring perfect 100 marks, especially during these pandemic times when we know at least the content learning or assimilation of the content must have taken a backseat when everything is online. Initial 6 years we all struggle to get first the required infrastructure, secondly how to use that, leave apart applying our knowledge. There when students are scoring so high, it is not only authenticity of the assessment under scanner, but it is also the impact this has on learners. Today my son who's in 12th and who has seen his counterparts or his seniors being assessed like that feels that mama, doesn't matter, teacher is going to give me marks, doesn't matter. So what kind of society are we leading to? So authentic assessment in terms of what we are going to assess, like Kathy pointed out, interest based assignments. Learn to assess the child based on what the child knows and not based on what the child does not know or does not want to know is very important. And this year we still haven't touched that field at all. 12th, I was hopeful that we would, but probably a lot still has to go because all we have done is given different weightage to just the academic or the content assessment that we had typically been doing over years. We still have to mature enough to assess, to create authentic assessments. And that's where, at least for the formative assessment, yes, we cannot change the government policies, but formative assessment, all of us who are sitting over here can inculcate authentic assessment there. It is within our circle of influence. It is not anything to do with government. So, as such, what I feel is we as educationists need to now start thinking of how authentic assessments can go to the classroom over and above. I'm not saying replace pen and paper test, but along with pen and paper test, lot more needs to be done in order to create authentic assessments. And we surely know, all of us know how, but how to take it to the classroom, how to help the teachers create those assessments is where we all need to kind of jump in and do our bit.
Push it. Exactly. I would like to, Annapurna ma'am, you have a question to ask?
Yeah, I just want to add on. Of late, actually, we've even started looking at assessment as learning, where there's a lot of reflection that is taking place, where children are encouraged to reflect on their learning, identify what is it that they have learned, what is it that they are finding it difficult, where do they stand as regards learning is concerned. Because a teacher most of the time is focused on teaching. To what extent is she understanding how much of the learning is really happening, and this particular aspect, assessment as learning, I think should give some kind of an input over there.
Yes.
I would like to add on one thing. Yes.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to ask him a question, since you are running such a big, a group of institutions. See, today, we have there's no secret about tech giants, who are in the field of education for the last 2 decades. But they have not been actually able to take control of the field of education till the pandemic came. And this now has become a tipping point for them to take control. So to what extent can we allow them to take control of this field of education? See, one thing is very clear: that the teacher as an interface, as an element, in this teaching learning cycle cannot be replaced. The human element is always there, required, because ultimately it is the building relationships between the teacher and the child which work. Only then it works. Whether it is the professional competencies of the teacher or the personal effectiveness of the teacher, however good they are, all of them will work only when the foundation, that is, when the building relationships between the teacher and the child happen. So to what extent can we allow this tech giants to take control of our education system today? What do you think? I mean, since you are running such a big group, I thought you would have some kind of insight into this.
Well, I think it's a wonderful question, madam. Thank you so much for asking. In my opinion, if I have to sum it up in a way, let me use an example. If we have to learn swimming, you need water. Okay, there is no swimming without water. I think that much all of us understand. Right? Now, the pool may be on the terrace, the pool may be in the basement, the pool may be a 50 meter or a 25 meter or even a simulated pool inside your bathroom. You still need the water. So I think in education, I will have to put it in this way: everything connected to EQ aspect will still be in the domain of human interaction. That means between the teacher and the taught. Apart from that, I don't agree with you when you use the line, how much can we allow them to control? Because I don't think they're asking our permission. They have actually brought in methodologies, mechanisms, and modus operandi, which are taking things into their hand automatically. So technology is already there. So they are not asking or waiting for our permission. What they realize is EQ element can never be taken over. So they are building systems around EQ. Around EQ. So what is happening is, platforms are changing. Today, the platform is all tech enabled. However, what is being done on the platform still remains pretty much what used to happen in the under the tree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would like to add on a little more what Dr. Catherine had mentioned, and then Mukta ma'am, and then Annapurna ma'am. You know, learning outcomes has to be known in the veins of a teacher. In case she's doing solar system, she should know how to get into the understanding what a system is, and that it can take it to any level. That can go to the child's interest, bring it to the class of 26, and then they can talk about system, and then she can get back to solar system. That I give you different aspects, you work on different aspects. This is how other this planets of a work, and the center remains the sun. So this is how the teacher has to know the learning outcomes heart down. That how I can encash on the child's interest and bring the learning outcome of what I wanted to teach the child.
Yeah.
So this is what is my understanding. Every school, every country, every teacher has to understand, and that will come by training, because what we learn in our being a teacher system, that is B.Ed, an entity. I'm sorry, it is not taught there. I guess it comes with experience. It comes with regular training, and that is only can sum up to bring up the teaching levels in our country, especially. Anybody else having any other question to ask? It is very interesting that still people are thinking what is pedagogical leadership. Still they do not know what is terminology, what does it mean being pedagogical leader. They do not know what is future ready school, because they're still struggling to understand, to to be the change, that okay, this pandemic habit happened, and I have to bring in the change, because every other school is bringing in the change. Everybody thought that as soon as possible, even going on WhatsApp classes, I will do that, because I need to get these fees out of my children's parents. That was the learning outcome rather than teaching a child. The day the things would have reversed, that somehow I want to teach my child rather than bring out money from the parents, things would have been better. Dr. Chandrashekar, I would like you to sum up this question, and we can sum up the session after that, because this is something which is missing, dramatically missing. The essence is missing. That is my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, see, this will take some time. I personally am not so pessimistic about it, but I will say that, see, if you try to do the way you were doing in a different style, I don't think it is going to work. So, what we need to do here is not changing the style, but we need to change the concept.
Right.
Okay, as long as we are focusing on the concept, then the change in the style will automatically come in. I mean, it's like this, right? If I want to speak French, I need to learn the language, and then I should start using the language. The minute I start using the language, my enunciation, my pronunciation, my accent, everything is going to change. Now, if I want to speak English like French, then that's a different game we are playing.
Exactly. You summed it very, very beautifully, Dr. Chandrashekar. And this is what EMI, we as an EMI platform of EMI, this is what we want to do. We want to handle the teachers as our own children, the way a teacher should handle a child. And this is how we want to bring in the change in the system, by holding the hands of the schools, the teachers, and telling them strategically how they can go right. We can take their burden of their shoulders on our hands and tell them that they can take the step forward and be the future ready schools is our motto of EMI. And anybody else having a question now, I would like to say vote of thanks to Dr. Chandrashekar for being with us, and I'm really honored that you were able to make it and give me time at one go. I couldn't make it in a week, and then you said, "Sir, go ahead, you can take another time from me." I'm so very thankful for that, sir. And I would like to have a connect with you forever to bring in the change in the system, because what I read about you is even you want to bring in the change in the system in India, and we would like to have your hand on us to bring in the change in the system, sir.
Sure, madam. Thank you very much. We will work hand in hand.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for joining in and being there for us. And we'll soon come up with a questionnaire to answer and take these things forward. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.